our exclusive economic zone. So now you see why China is looking at our exclusive economic zone, because we have more than what they have. That would have been a major victory for the Philippines. In fact, when 1982 happened, when UNCLOS was approved, Senator Tolentino reported to then President Ferdinand Marcos and said, we have won something very big. Imagine that exclusive economic zone. This is the exclusive economic zone under UNCLOS of China, this blue line here. This blue line is the exclusive economic zone of Vietnam. Here is Indonesia, here is Malaysia, Brunei, and then Malaysia again. And here is our exclusive economic zone all the way around the archipelago. We would have lived happily ever after. However, what happened is that China, as early as 1947, even before the Chinese Communist Party took over, already announced their 9-dash line. What is their 9-dash line? This is the line where they say that this area here, about 90% of the South China Sea, is their territory. Not just an exclusive economic zone, but their territory, and they have sovereign rights, according to them, over this part of the South China Sea. And you can see here that it is intruding well within our exclusive economic zone. In fact, they're claiming about 90% of our exclusive economic zone in the western part of the Philippines. That is now what we call the West Philippine Sea. So that is the point of contention now. It was very quiet for a while. However, in 1995, they took over Mischief Reef by constructing this shelter. They were saying, don't worry about it, this is only for temporary shelter for our fishermen. Things quieted down. But then in 1999, they constructed something more permanent. This is now the permanent structure in the Mischief Reef. And this continued up to about 2 years ago when they started constructing more by reclamation. So these are the structures now. You know already about the reclamations in Subi Reef, in Pine Cross Reef, Quarteron Reef, Johnson South, Gaven. But the only reclamation that is inside our exclusive economic zone is Mischief Reef. All the rest are outside our exclusive economic zone, except that Subi Reef is only about 12 nautical miles from Pag-asa. Pag-asa is somewhere here, which is part of our territory under Republic Act 9522. Now, these are what they're doing now. Mischief Reef used to be only this, but now they've reclaimed a huge chunk of Mischief Reef. This was the original structure. Now they have this, about more than 100 times the original structure in Mischief Reef. This is Mischief Reef. And this is what they plan to do there. They're planning to do solar power, some harbor facilities, buildings there, because I think this is about 300 hectares. The reclamation area here is about 300 hectares. And this is Mischief Reef, but what is the status of the other islands? I already mentioned there's Woody Island. That's in the Paracel, Subi Reef, 3,000 meter runway in Subi. They also have a 3,000 meter runway in Pine Cross, and also in our Mischief Reef, they also have a 3,000 meter runway. That is almost as long as the runway in Naiya. And all of these runways can be militarized anytime, can be used by practically every aircraft in the inventory of the PLA Air Force. China grabbed Scarborough Shoal in April 2012. And what is the location of Scarborough Shoal? It is strategically located. It is very close to our mainland in Luzon. It is a threat to our major economic and military facilities because it is pointed at the Subic area, at the Clark area, at the Metro Manila area. It's very close also to the Calabarzon area. It is even a big danger as far as security is concerned compared to the other facilities in the South China Sea. And again, I'd like to go back to what I mentioned earlier, the strategic triangle. Now they have control of this. And they can, as we have seen in the past, it's very easy for them to conduct reclamation activities there. Now, on January 22, because of the problem there, we decided it was, we could not dialogue with them. They wanted bilateral, but before the bilateral, they insisted that we should first recognize that they have sovereignty over the South China Sea, and we could not agree to that. And because of that, we filed on January 22, we instituted arbitral proceedings. This is the Permanent Court of Arbitration. On July 12, the Republic of the Philippines was awarded a favorable decision by the Permanent Court of Arbitration. Sana okay na sana yan, no? We expected it to be a game changer. It gave us a very big award. It repudiated China's 9 dash lines. It did not recognize the claim of China that they have historic rights in the sea. And it also recognized that Pacific Rim and many other parts, including Recto Bank or Reed Bank, is part of our exclusive economic zone. In other words, we are the only ones who have the right to exploit the natural resources there. That was supposed to be a major big district. This is a Reed Bank. It's about 8,000 square kilometers. This is quite a big body of water. Some parts are only about 45 meters deep. Some are even shallower than that. And this is reputed to have a lot of natural resources, particularly oil and natural gas. In fact, we tried to explore this in the early 80s, but China objected, sent some brigades there in order to drive away our survey ships. Under the Constitution, the state shall protect a nation's marine wealth in its archipelagic waters, territorial sea, and exclusive economic zone, and reserve its use and enjoyment exclusively to Filipino citizens. In other words, our Constitution mandates that the state must protect our exclusive economic zone. It is not optional. This is something that we must always remember. It is not optional. It is mandatory for the state to protect our exclusive economic zone. That is mandated by the Constitution. But of course, China won't accept the Hague Sovereignty Arbitration. In fact, the first thing they do is that they just shrugged off the tribunal's ruling, and they said that they're not going to participate in any way. They're not going to accept the arbitration. And the ruling, according to them, they will not accept the result, and it will not affect their position. In fact, the following day, they sent a bomber that passed our Scarborough show that shows you how hostile they were to show their, that this was a July 17 report. This is a strategic bomber. So it was very obvious at that point that they were upping the ante. Of course, various countries urged China to respect the ruling of the arbitral tribunal. World leaders reacted to the ruling. Of course, we have the reaction from the Philippines, which was a little restrained. They called for sobriety. Vietnam sided with us, the United States, Australia, New Zealand also issued a warning, a statement urging China to respect the ruling. Of course, Japan had a very strong statement in our favor, India as well. But China continued to ignore the arbitral tribunal, and our position was they cannot ignore that because of extreme international pressure. From the United States, I mentioned that already, even Seoul entered the picture, urging China to respect. And then there's this symbolic gesture when the United States defense chief visited an aircraft carrier at that time patrolling in the South China Sea. I'd like to speed up the turn of events here. The Philippines, President Duterte decided to send former President Fidel Ramos to talk with counterparts in China. They had a discussion in Hong Kong. There was initially a statement saying that the FBR was willing to set aside the Hague ruling in the China talk, but of course this met with a lot of negative opinion, and President Duterte had to make a statement saying that we also do not want to offend the United States. Why? because we have identified ourselves allied with the Western powers. So that was his statement at that point. This was in the early part of July. And the Philippines said that the President said that the Philippines will not give any concessions to China over the zero. And because of this, I said, I made a statement, I welcome this statement, because the President said, we value the award given by the tribunal, and the Philippines will not concede any of the awards given to us. Statement from President Duterte. And the Philippines rejected China's offer to talk outside of the court's ruling on the South China Sea. This was sometime in August already. Now, what are the options of China after the ruling of the tribunal? A lot of people were worried because they're worried that China might take an extreme action, like declaring an air defense identification zone, similar to what they did in the East China Sea. This would be very provocative, and a lot of people are saying that this might be considered a red line by the other powers because they're going to be affected also by the ADIC. It's going to make it very complicated for us to fly from the Philippines, going to Vietnam, going to Bangkok, because we have to pass through the ADIC of China. But of course, this has not happened. The other possible scenarios would be for them to start constructing in Scarborough Shoal. But then again, that would be considered a red line also. What is the statement of the U.S.? The United States said its forces will keep operating in the South China Sea, especially the aircraft carriers. And in fact, one senator, Dan Sullivan, presented this map. This is what he calls the U.S. senator, the strategic significance of the South China Sea. You know, he provided circles. Circles here are circles where it would be indicative of what China can do in terms of patrolling the South China Sea. If they militarize Scarborough Shoal, for example, this is an area which they can easily patrol. They have already artificial islands that can be easily activated in the Spratly Islands, Byron Cross, Johnson Reef, including Mississippi. Woody Island is already existing. So this series of circles are circles of control that will give China full control of the South China Sea. But of course, the US Navy said that we are staying in the South China Sea. And here are the countries that are very interested in what's happening there. Malabar exercise. India entered the picture by participating in the Malabar exercise. What is the Malabar exercise? This is an naval exercise near Okinawa, participated in by the United States, by India, and by Japan. And in the case of India, India mentioned not only deployment, they're talking of operational deployment. In other words, India was saying that they're very interested in South China Sea, and they would like to stay there for quite a long time, as reported in Times of India. The naval exercise of China. China responded even before the July 12 announcement of the Arbitral Tribunal by holding a live fire drill in the South China Sea as a strong message directed at the other powers in the area. And of course, this is a plus point. And here's what we were able to secure. This is from the intelligence community. The intelligence community is saying that this is what China, if they would be unimpeded, are planning to do in Scarborough Shoal. They're also planning to construct around Scarborough Shoal. These are rocks here. They're not going to touch the lagoon here. And they're planning to have a runway here, airport management, some buildings, even some tourism area. And there's a natural channel here. Maybe they'll dredge a little bit to make the lagoon a little deeper. How big is the lagoon? The lagoon is not small. A lot of people are saying, malit na bagay lang yan. The lagoon inside Scarborough Shoal is about 150 square kilometers, almost the size of Quezon City. Quezon City is 160 square kilometers, so you can imagine what they can do inside the lagoon. This is even going to be bigger than Subic Bay or Pearl Harbor if they can succeed in militarizing this.